Hey guys, how you going? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and welcome to 2025. We're back. We've just been away with the family for a couple of days and looking forward to kicking things off this year. I'm sure everyone's got different goals and resolutions that they're working towards, so let's go. Here's 2025.
Yeah.
Um, Today we're going to discuss with you guys how to handle recurring arguments in your relationship. So this is something that comes up quite a lot for us in our relationship, but also the clients we work with, is how do we actually work with the recurring arguments and what's really going on below the surface. So what does a recurring argument look like? Well, this could be something that just comes up time and time again around the same thing, arguing about the same things with the kids, arguing about money, not, different aspects of money, different aspects of sexuality, or not having enough sex, or whatever it is. There arguments that keep coming up time after time around the same things, and it could be, for most of us, there's probably in lots of different areas. They come up across all the different areas of our life. So how do we tackle these? How do we stop having these arguments go round and round in circles and make change and move forward and build closeness instead of walls and separation?
So recurring arguments are really just a sign that you haven't resolved the issue. That's really what's going on. And the reason it keeps coming back up time and time again with the same argument is simply that between the two of you, you haven't resolved it to a satisfactory level for one or both of you. And if you're both arguing about it, it will be because there's something within both of you that isn't resolved.
Yeah. So, you want more?
Yeah.
So, some things we can look at here with recurring arguments are unmet needs, vulnerabilities or insecurities that we have, biases, so different ways that our mind is conditioned. So, a bias may be that you expect something to be done some way because that's how you've been conditioned to view the world. You view the world through that bias. And these things often just play out automatically, unconsciously. It's nobody's fault. These are just things that we don't see, and therefore they just play automatically, trigger our partner. And it's important to know that all of these dynamics within our relationship are mirrors. The arguments we have and what gets thrown up in our emotional state is there for us to learn at a much deeper level what's really going on within us.
So the important point there also that Justin touched on is that recurrent arguments are often not about the thing that you're arguing about at all. It's about needs, vulnerabilities, or underlying needs and vulnerabilities, pain or biases. And that's the only way to resolve it, is actually to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we actually do that?
This is what we're here to discuss today.
Yeah. So firstly, we have to understand that most of the time recurring arguments are not about the thing. A lot of people argue about the thing on the surface, but it's the deeper layer that we just can't see, or don't have skills to access, or don't have the courage to look at. Whatever the case is, there's something deeper that's driving this. Our emotions drive our behaviours, so quite often there's a deeper emotion that's driving something underneath there. So the first step is to breathe and stop and connect in with how we really feel. Do we feel angry? Do we feel sad? Do we feel hurt? Do we feel frustrated? Annoyed? What is it? What's the actual emotion that we're feeling that's driving this behaviour within us? So that's the first step, is to try and identify that emotion within us.
Okay. And
then I'll keep going. I'm just going to kick it to you, but I'll keep going.
I'll go from here. So the most important thing is that oftentimes with recurrent arguments, you're not going to solve it inside the moment initially. It's going to be that you might want to put a pause on it. You might say, hey, hon, we argue about this a lot. Can we just pause here, because this isn't, it's going to get us nowhere. So if you can do that, that's great. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But what we need to do, the work we need to do here to resolve the issue isn't going to happen in the moment. You're going to need to get some space and need to calm down and let the argument go. And you're going to have to go in and just calm yourself down, self-soothe in some way. For what we would teach is that we would then come back to our partner, and I would say, hey, hun, we're having this argument again and again and again, and I know there's something deeper going on for me, and I'm thinking it probably for you too, but I don't want to keep having this same argument. I really want to resolve it. And can we find some time to sit down and actually discuss it and try and work out what's going on for each other? Because, you know, I really do want to resolve it. I don't want just every time we argue like this, I feel terrible, and it just makes me feel disconnected and, you know, disrespected. And that's not because you're doing that, but it just is driving a wedge between us. And I don't want to continue down that path. I really want to resolve it.
Do we have time now? Do you have time to give to me now?
Not right now because I've got to do dinner for the kids.
Okay,
I would really like to discuss it at a later point.
I
want to take the time, yeah?
Yes.
And I think it is going to take a bit of time, and maybe we can go out for lunch and do it or something. I don't know. So that's what we would do. We would come and we would say, let's make some time when we're both super calm to talk about this. Now, there will be occasions when your partner does not want to, not willing to. Just leave it with them for a bit of time. They might not be able to say yes inside the moment like Justin just did. Sometimes they'll get their defences straight up because they're thinking, right, they're coming back at me with all their argument all over again. But sometimes leave it with them. They might say, yeah, I would like to resolve that. Or you're going to then go and do the rest of this work on your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just say we've had dinner, put the kids to bed. It's a couple of days later and we've actually gone out for lunch now, and I'm sitting down with Maria and I actually say, I appreciate you bringing that to me, that this argument, it's annoying me too, and I feel frustrated. And there's one thing that I've uncovered is that when you undermine, I feel undermined sometimes when you say things in front of the kids with me about the way I'm parenting. That makes me feel undermined, and it makes me feel not good enough actually. So that's why I get triggered.
So I should be laughing.
No, that might trigger your partner straight back if you start laughing.
So can you give me an example like of how that happens, and then exactly like what you feel? So what we're doing here is showing you how we're not going to keep going because we'll go on for 40 years, but what we're showing you is how you would then start to discuss it by listening to your partner and by asking more questions so you can fully understand it. So I would ask Justin.
And also not being offended that somebody feels the way they do. Maria could bite back at me and say, well, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to undermine you, blah, blah, blah. But she's giving me the time to understand me, because it's not about what she did. It's about how I feel and what it makes me feel. If you want to stop the recurring arguments, we have to understand each other.
So Justin always talks about the 5 character traits we need to have a great relationship, and this is where they really come into play. Courage to sit here and be in this conversation. And when Justin's saying you undermine me in front of the kids, he's telling me something, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to be like, oh, and I'm going to feel bad and maybe a bit of shame, and I have to ride those waves and stay interested in this person, what his experience is. I have to understand that. If I'm going to resolve it, if I want to create a better relationship, I've got to understand Justin's experience of how he's experiencing what's going on. And then I can have my turn in a minute for Justin to then understand my experience of it. When you do things with the kids that I think are wrong, and I'm scared that they're going to traumatise them, or I'm scared that you're going to upset them, and I'm going to be the one left all over again dealing with the tears. So I might say something like that, right? So I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling, whatever it is, right? So courage. We need some courage. We need compassion, and we need curiosity. They're really important character traits here. And dig deep, go in, understand where your partner's coming from, be interested. We want to be interested in how they're feeling. Now we're going to start getting closer to what's actually going on at the root cause. What is the root cause of the argument? It won't be about the undermining the kids. It's going to be, I feel a particular way. I feel small. I feel like you're not respecting me.
So I wouldn't feel, in that example, that scenario, it's that I feel not good enough. I feel like I'm failing as a father and as a husband, not stepping up and being able to, in the eyes of Maria, do what I need to do with the kids. And that's my insecurity, that I wouldn't feel good. I wouldn't feel good enough about myself. So no longer is it, arguing about whatever's happening with the kids. Now at the deeper level, we're actually arguing or being triggered by my insecurity about not feeling good enough. And because relationships are a mirror, that will automatically, through my unconscious reaction to that, would then potentially, most likely, trigger Maria into some kind of defense. So that's why we have to own it and say, this is mine, this is what I feel, and it's got nothing to do with you or what you said. This is just how it makes me feel, and I want you to know that. That's the vulnerable part of sharing, that, and especially as a guy, it feels incredibly uncomfortable to share, some perceived weakness. But that's the sharing, that's the vulnerable part that actually builds strength and intimacy in the relationship.
Absolutely. So. And it's all about, what the underlying feature here is taking responsibility. So Jocelyn's not just dumping it on me and we're not having that argument again. He's saying, this is how I feel. And I'm saying, well, can you explain that? And then I'll also have my turn. So once Justin's finished speaking, then the other partner needs to also be given the chance to speak and explain how they feel in the situation.
Yeah.
Now,
so sorry, I'll just to close that out. What I would then say to Maria to find a solution is, honey, when that happens, do you think, even in the moment, if you think I've done something wrong, just can you let it go, and then later on come and talk to me in the bedroom or something, and just say, hey, maybe you were, whatever it is, maybe you're being a bit hard with the kids, or maybe that wasn't the right approach or something, but then we can get on the same page and I can feel supported by Maria in that way. Yeah. And I may even come to the conclusion that, Maria's, whatever she was trying to say is actually right. What I was doing was probably, too controlling or overbearing for the kids or whatever it is, but I might then see through the reflection of Maria that, yeah, you know what, I can do better there. I can actually change my approach there. So
yeah, so that's finding a solution. What we're going to, Esther Perel, a wonderful relationship therapist, an internationally regarded therapist, speaks about that there's often three hidden dimensions that lie underneath couples arguings and couples arguments and couples fights, and particularly recurrent ones. So these, and I think these are so powerful, so we want to mention them here. So their power and control is the first one. So that's things like arguing about, undermining with the kids is a classic one. So I'm feeling like, that you've undermined my power, you've usurped some power, or you're controlling, or whatever it is. The second one is care and closeness. So this is fights about like connection and things like that. So it's when we have a difference perhaps in how much sex we want. It might be, if it's perceived that somebody is doing all the organising of all the dates or whatever, putting more effort into the relationship and the other person isn't. Those sorts of arguments.
Why am I always the one that has to text or reach out with messages or whatever?
Yep. And the last one is respect and recognition, and that's things like, you're, basically looking at how much work am I doing around the house and I'm not getting, I don't seem to get the notice, you don't notice that, but you want the recognition over here for that thing you've done over there. Those types of things, and respect is a really big one, just as particularly around children or other people or things like this. So I
think a lot one for guys too, a lot is stereotypically around the feeling recognised for earning the money or whatever, which is changing. So that's where that bias needs to change as well. That world's not what it used to be either.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great example here that you see sometimes from perhaps the more anxious person in the partnership might be something like, you'll go out and you'll organise things without me, but you don't ever sort of check in to see what I'm doing or what I might have had planned or things like that. So respect and recognition, prioritising the relationship, those types of things. So those are really wonderful things to have in the back of your mind, because what will happen when we do have that discussion that Justin and I just showed you is something will come up, and then now we're actually talking about what the issue is. No longer are we fighting about the, how it plays out.
Getting distracted by the moment.
And how it plays out, but we're now discussing the root cause, and we're taking responsibility for our role in that. And now we can talk about a resolution. How do we actually resolve that? How can I make you feel more respected? Thank you for letting me know that does that. I didn't realise. I sort of hadn't, it hadn't occurred to me that how that makes you feel in front of the kids, for example. Or, and then the behaviour can happen like that. The change can happen in the next moment. You might zip your lips, choose to do that inside the moment, and show your partner, I've listened, I've heard, and I'm willing to change my behaviour around that, or whatever it is. the resolution. Doesn't always have to be agreed upon. It can just be something you sit with and then you start to demonstrate. It doesn't actually have to always be, I'm going to do this if you do that, and it doesn't have to be like that. It can be just a deep acknowledgement of, wow, I didn't see that, thanks so much for sharing, and I would like to do something around that. And most of the time, that again is showing it how it builds respect, it builds recognition, it builds those things, so we're not arguing about them. And if the argument does come up again, and it can happen, then you're going to hopefully catch it and go, oh wow, we're arguing about that thing. Where did we go wrong this time on that? Is there something else for us to uncover?
Yeah, great. So we're going to sort of wrap it up now with the way to stop recurring arguments from what we've just explained is that we have to help each other acknowledge our vulnerability. So this whole process is about helping each other and building that space, and we talk a lot about creating emotional safety. Is how do we actually create that safe space where we can be vulnerable and express what it is that we actually want to or need to express. Most of the time we're not even aware we need to, but it's through the arguments that it shows us where we need to investigate to express what it is that we need to express. So creating that safe space for vulnerability. The next step is to discover the roots. So once we can start to express this stuff, we're going to start to dig into the roots, into what it really is, our insecurities, our fears, our vulnerabilities, what those deeper things are that are really driving our external behaviours. When those root causes are uncovered, they're going to generate uncomfortable emotions. Vulnerabilities, fears, insecurities, they always generate uncomfortable feelings with us. So we have to build the capacity to handle the wave of emotion. That's, a lot of the stuff we teach is how do you actually embody that? How do you actually work with your nervous system to handle what's happening within your own body at that root level, at that base level? And then after that, it's finding ways to deal with the pain, to deal with the underlying pain, because below that insecurity, that vulnerability, that fear, there's a core wound or some kind of limited belief or something which causes us emotional pain. And quite often it's our attempt in that argument to control the argument or to get something from the argument to actually avoid feeling the pain that we feel. So we need to work with our partner to find ways to
and that's the resolution, that's the solving of the problem. That's what's going to solve that and solve the issue, and then you won't argue about this stuff again. You will actually put it under your feet and it moves into the background, and you move forward. You're going to feel stronger for solving those issues. So the last little point that I'm going to say is that when there's anything recurrent in your life, be it an argument or any other pattern in your life, it simply means there's something to learn. And when you realise that, it becomes like, okay, this has come up for learn, because there's something more for me to learn here. So, don't be afraid of it. Don't dance around it. Don't avoid it. It's not going to bring you any closer to your partner. In fact, it will actually distance them. So whether it's an argument or some other recurrent pattern in your life, it just means there's more for you to learn and more for you. There's expansion to happen and growth for you right there, right in front of you. So dive in and give it a go.
Yeah.
Any comments, let us know. Any feedback, as always, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, and let's truck on with 2025. We'll see you guys soon. Cheers, guys.